Steve, you guys had some news out yesterday and wanted to say congratulations as you have made your final payment on the La Virginia project and now are the 100% owner. So, anything you could share there and tell folks about how things are coming along?
I mean, it's a big milestone for any company, but yeah, and I have to thank the landowners and the claims owners that we did our agreement with, and a number of times we restructured that based on the different complications in the market and things that were happening, and our partners have been great working with us. But to finally get to where we're issuing that final shares and cash payment to acquire the project outright 100%. Is a milestone. It makes us, in my opinion, and from when I've talked to the various mining companies and that, the junior owning it 100% outright and not having any split ownership or potentially different groups to deal with is a big deal. So for us, owning that 100% is huge. It eliminates future payments or anything that we have on that front. So again, it'll be our balance sheet and our spending comes down based on that, not having any additional payments year by year. And now we can get to work and find a partner or find someone to acquire the project ultimately down the road and make our shareholders some money. And so hopefully, that's always been a question. I know it was an overhang at times when we had, prior to being able to restructure deals, is some of the funds were approached and say, how are you going to make that payment? This market's tough. How are you going to be able to make that property payment? And, the risk in their mind of potentially not making the payment and losing the asset was there. And, so to work through all that, even given the tough market over the last few years, to be able to raise capital and to be able to make sure that we are acquiring our asset 100%, which is done now, is great. And again, I got to thank our partners in Mexico for working with us throughout the whole process. And I think it's a big first step moving forward as we get into a better gold and silver market here, and ultimately, get back to drilling and updating the resource and showing where this asset is at. But even with where our resource is right now on that project, which, with the drilling we've done, the resource would be higher. But, I look back at, history and even before this bump up in gold and silver, what companies were typically paying per ounce. And Agnico Eagle for a long time had a slide that covered the last, 6, 7 years of acquisitions they made. And they were advertising an acquisition price of 120, I believe it was $125 per ounce US in the ground of what they were paying for ounces of gold. And so, in our case, we have, 700,000 gold equivalent ounces. And if you're paying, 100 and some US per ounce, you're getting up close to, $100 million Canadian. And we're trading at a, Canadian market cap right now of around, 15 to 18 million. And that's gold when gold was trading at 1,300, 1,200, 1,400, 1,500, and margins were very thin. If you go back further into history and talking with my father, who's been around the industry for a very long time, there was a time where it was a third of the gold price was what was paid on an acquisition. The acquiring company got a third. It was a third, a third, a third was always the rule in our sector. So as we have prices move up, you're going to see that price in the ground, and it probably already should be a lot higher than 100 and some US per ounce in the ground with 2,400 gold in a good jurisdiction in a mine that makes sense and was economic back at $1,200. So again, I think it starts to really show how undervalued our company is just on the ounces in the ground. Never mind what we've already added with the drill rig that would be in an updated resource, and starting to factor in how many ounces we would have additionally with you know an independent using 20. Well, they wouldn't use 2,400, but let's say they use 2,200 or 2,100 versus the 14 or 1,500 that our last resource was done at per ounce, and that will add a ton of ounces. It'll bring the grade down, but it's because it's economic, and it's going to be economic to mine a lot more of that lower grade material. But I'm excited, and I think it starts to speak to where we're positioned, and we're not the only one, but it's definitely my opinion, how undervalued. You'll hear lots of CEOs say it, but we're that undervalued, and that's using an old standard of what you pay in the ground. Moving forward, that number is going to move up, and it's going to move up dramatically. So that's the opportunity for investors, and it's up to them to take advantage. And I think the funds are chomping at the bit to do it. And as we covered, seeing inflows into the funds, you're going to see capital pour back into the space. And when capital starts pouring back into the space, these share prices will recover and jump very, very quickly on the junior side. So again, I hope investors see the value in that, and we see money start to come back into a company like ours. And for all those shareholders who support us, I thank you. And moving forward, I think we're going to see much higher share prices and a much stronger market.
Yeah, and Steve, obviously, you mentioned in there getting back out and drilling. We've talked a bit about how that process has been going in the financing environment. I know there's other options you've been looking into, and just if there's anything that you can update since our last talk about how things are coming along there, and also if there would be any other steps contingent after the drilling, would then the updated resource be the next step, or any other key hurdles you would have to cross to get there?
No, yeah, I mean, I think after our next phase of drilling, we'll definitely update the resource. That would definitely be a big step. As far as financing options, there's a bunch of different stuff. We're owed quite a bit of money by the Mexican government. We just hired a new group to come in and start trying to recover that capital, but there's a $2.5 million sum sitting there that we should be able to, get a bunch of that back. And in that itself, as that money starts coming in, that would fund a drill program. We've also talking with a number of different partners that are very interested in getting involved. So there's the potential for a joint venture on the project where we have someone else fund drilling to earn a certain percentage of the property interest, and that could be an avenue moving forward. That's whether it would be a non-dilutionary way of financing the project for investors to benefit from. I mean, the main thing here is we got to get back to work. We've got to start producing that news flow and increasing the resource, and get it up to. Our goal is always to make something as large that it's interesting to those major mining companies, and so we want to see million minimum, but really, you want to push this up to over 2 million ounces of gold to really get, the Agnicos and out of the world going, or the Fresnios, targeting a Mexican mining company that's a very large, one of the largest silver producers in the world, is the largest silver producer in the world. So these are the types of companies that we want to be ultimately selling our project to. And to do that, we've got to get back drilling. We've got to expand on that resource, a bit further. But this project has the potential to get a lot bigger than 2 million ounces, with whether it's our deeper target that we talk about and we've talked about in the past, or finding additional stuff at surface that are other El Rubies on the project. It's a target rich environment, lots that have never been drilled before. It's a massive land package with this structure that runs for, hundreds of kilometers. It's just vectoring in on those best spots for mineralization to occur and have the largest blowouts and best grades. And again, I think it's one of the best, if not, gold, silver assets out there right now. And it's just where we're at in this market. That's unfortunate, but there are things definitely behind the scenes that are happening that are going to bring us back to drilling and being prominent again. And I'm excited for those things to come to fruition here, hopefully very soon.